Hello, and welcome to another week of the Storied Arcs podcast. I am your co-host, Mike.
And I'm your co-host, Alex.
And today, we are continuing our deep dive into Letter 44. I believe we're both reading the compendium, but today we are discussing issues 13 to 25.
24.
Which if you're... I read through 25. Okay.
Uh-oh.
That's okay.
No spoilers, though. No spoilers.
Right.
It is
I just
24.
need to delete... Okay, no. Okay, my notes didn't actually cover anything in 25.
All right,
which makes sense because it didn't really add anything to the previous arc. So the only caveat we're throwing out here is that if you're reading the trade paperbacks, not the deluxe, but specifically just the trade paperbacks, you will be missing some of the interstitial content, which we'll cover in this episode, but none of that is like spoilery, really. It's just backstory.
Well, it is, and it makes sense. So, what we discussed a couple weeks ago in the Zero, issues 7, 14, 21, 28, and 32 are all standalone one-shots, and they took those stories and they compiled them together in their own trade paperback, which is labeled as volume number 5. So if you were reading this chronologically via trade paperback, you would have gotten all those interstitial stories right before the finale, right before the last volume. So if you have those and you wanted to read along with us, you'd have to jump into trade volume 5, read an issue, a couple issues, and then jump back. Outside of that, we're basically covering, for the most part, 3 and like part of 4. So it's broken up a little strange. I think the compendium just basically did that because they're breaking it down into thirds. They're less concerned about exact storylines. Although I think in all cases here, and especially here, you get a good breaking point.
I don't think there's a bad way to read it.
No. I think there's a logical end to, if you wanted to say where this deluxe volume stops story-wise, for both our stories on Earth and in space.
Yes.
Like there's a pretty good cliffhanger for both, even though according to the trade paperbacks, volume 4 covers 22 to 27. So this would have been in the middle of that, which does kind of track. I think that tracks onto when right after I think Major Drum comes back to Earth in the asteroid. So there's also another kind of natural story break there. But I think it works out the way this volume ends with Charlotte. I was going to say like getting captured, but she was trying to get captured. Going back to the builders, right, and getting back to the chandelier to try to find her daughter. So from a story standpoint, it works that there's a nice natural break there. And then again, if you were reading the deluxe editions and you got to the end of that and the end of the book, you'd be like, oh crap, I got to get to, I got to find volume 3, or I can't wait for volume 3 so I can get the rest of the story.
Where to begin with this one? I mean, I have some like zoom out philosophical type things, but I've also got things that more follow the chronology of the story. My very first note was, and I guess this was probably somewhere in the late teens, I wrote to myself, it started to become very obvious that not learning the names of the characters on the space station is a detriment to reading this book. They're much more important than I thought they would be. Yeah. And again, like I said last time, I'm still very much ride or die for my take on this, which is I could use a lot less of that storyline, especially since they start to cover it from multiple vantage points. Like Major Drum gets back to Earth and he basically replays all the stuff that we were able to intuit about, like, how they all started hooking up, and then they had this, it's like, my God, I didn't need an issue of that. Like I had already figured that out. It's human nature. They have a baby on board. Yeah. Like we were able to intuit some of these things. That being said, I very much like the whole Major Drum back on Earth type.
I agree. I love that.
Yeah. That was great. But it was getting more and more difficult to follow the space station if you weren't tracking the specific history of each character. Yeah. And I guess since the interstitials here relate to characters on the ship,
Yeah.
perhaps this is the time to talk about what did you think of the interstitials? Like,
I think they're fine. I think again, it is it's very standard comic book tropey, you know, to use that story construction as a way to fill in gaps, as a way of backstory, you know. And again, as we talked about, there's also a practical reason of if you do this kind of one shot here, you get to expand the word a little bit, and when you bring in a guest artist, you know, you give your series regular artist a little bit of a break. You give them
yes,
time to catch up, take a break, do whatever, so you're not burning them out. So there's a storytelling reason. There's also a real world practical reason, and I get all that. I think they're fine. I think they're interesting. I don't think they're critical, at least not as of yet. And I understand why. Well, the fact that as we just kind of inadvertently recapped again, the fact that when they collected these single issues, they put them together and they labeled them as book 5, implying you're reading the main chunk of the story first. Then you get
right.
all of these interstitials, and then you get the ending. I think tells you that this is stuff they would like you to know, and the stuff they put effort into, and gives backstory on the character. But there is nothing as of yet of the ones we've seen. So to recap real quick, last volume we got one backstory issue 7. That was drawn by Joel Jones. There we got Hayden, and we got Rowan, the crew member who is dead in the current times. And I guess we get confirmation of that here because we see his gravesite later on. So somewhere in there, along before the start of the series, he died. In this volume, we got 2 issues. Issue 14, drawn by Drew Moss, which was Overholt and Willett, 2 of our military guys, kind of our pilot and our military captain and our engineer. And then issue 21, drawn by Ryan Kelly, that was Pritchard, who was our astrophysicist, I guess, astroscientist, and Gomez, who was our field medic, our military medic. Nothing, as I can tell, that we've gotten from these interstitials are critical to the characters that we've seen. They give definition to things, the characters that we've seen, but nothing that I don't think we could infer. Like the big thing I think we get from Charlotte is that she clearly had been trying to have a child. They make allusion in
Right.
her last time that she had like multiple miscarriages, I guess. So the fact that she had, so in that way, I guess they're giving her motivation that this child means so much more to her, which is odd to me because I think having a child at any point would mean as much, but whatever there.
Yeah,
You're
don't
giving
squabble. Yeah.
Yeah. You're giving backstory to that. So I see what they're trying to do. I don't think it's necessary there. Getting backstory on Rowan, okay, that's a character we don't see, but apparently just comes off as kind of a dick. So maybe you can infer it, you can intuit from that he didn't really get along and something happened, and everyone agreed to cover it up. So maybe they don't feel bad about whatever happened. So I'm not certain about that.
The Willett backstory.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but like okay, so we get him that he is also a dick, but he's also maybe the best engineer alive. He can fix anything,
Well, right. I mean, well, Willett is like the hot-headed guy, right? Who
exactly. Yeah.
he's got a buddy advocating for him. Like he constantly gets himself in trouble, and
Yeah.
he's got a friend looking out for him because he saved his life so many times.
Yeah.
And he is it's a bad comparison in a lot of ways, but just on this one metric of being the leap before you look is very, James Tiberius Kirk. He's a high intuition guy. He
Yeah.
gets his friends out of jams.
Yeah.
Um, he's not going to be the guy who will sit down and explain a logical position before taking action.
Well,
And you wonder how he ends up on a plane like that, or on a flight like this, and then you find out like, oh, it's because
he's a genius. Yeah,
he's
yeah.
a genius and he's got
Or a
a
savant,
buddy
whatever we
on
call
the
it.
mission who's
Yeah.
at bat for him.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's clear he also is actually really good at what he does. He can do things. He sees things that no one else can. And you're right. He is very much the person of. It seems to be like if you're with him, he's ride or die for you. You know,
Yes.
like if you're with him, he will do whatever it is to save you. But yeah, so we understand why someone like him is. We get backstory on the connection between him and Overholt. We don't learn much more about Overholt other than he was, pretty high up in the military already, and that he vouched for Willett, and it's because Willett is the kind of person you would want, I guess, to be in space on this mission, because he apparently can fix anything. We get Pritchard's backstory about this idea that did he have cancer? Didn't what basically he got tricked into going on this, but because it was so potentially scientifically impactful, he bought in anyway, which okay, like we've seen this guy already do things in, like he went and engaged the first asteroid they found because it was like, this is scientific, right?
Right.
This is why we're up here. So we already understand that about him. And then with Gomez, we see that again, he's he's a field medic. So he's the guy that rushes out there, the guy that puts his life on the line to go and help other people. He wants. We see that in his actions as he is, become fused with the builders there. So again, nothing. I don't think we can't intuit from what we've been shown. I think it's stuff that's interesting. It's something I would consider necessary yet. It's a nice break. I don't mind it. Again, because I know the other reasons for it. But if it weren't there, I wouldn't feel like I've missed anything.
Yeah, I think that's kind of my thing. I'm trying to grade according to what should be like my problem is when I read this as an issue and it kind of breaks the flow of reading,
Mm-hmm.
I feel irritated by it and like get it out of the way, which means I probably prefer the way the trade paperbacks are broken down.
Sure.
To do it like time before time and so many other things that use interstitials. But if I were reading this in single issue and they were giving us these backstories through backup matter, they're broken down into like
Mm-hmm.
5 to 7 page chunks, I'd be like, this is so cool. I love this. But to take a full like 24-page break from your story at once feels like a lot.
Yeah.
Especially when, I think this book is a bit of a page turner. I when I'm reading it, I finish an issue. Well, case in point, I went one issue too far this time. Um, I'm ready to keep going because I want to see where the story goes. And when you take these big breaks, it's a little tougher.
I can see. I mean, there is a level of propulsion to this story that they've clearly built into it. I think a case in point in this is that we go like there's like a smash cut, to use like a movie term, and all of a sudden we're in the middle of World War III.
Right.
It's like there is a time jump there, and all of a sudden, like a lot of stuff has happened. Our crew has been with the builders for several months, and the world is at war now. And so there is a built-in propulsion of just like, we're going to keep this thing going, and the train's just getting faster and faster and faster. We're barreling towards something, but they don't have a lot of downtime. And I wonder maybe if that's why they throw those in there, because there isn't a lot of downtime, especially in this volume, that once things start going, they start to move. No one really gets a break. On Earth, they're dealing with obviously everything that's going on with the war, and then Major Drum comes back and what that means. Up in space, our crew, the Clark, they're with the builders, but there's this underlying thing of like, what do they want from us? Why can't we, they have all these suspicions. And then, then obviously there's the breaking point of them leaving and then needing to go back to get Astra. So they're putting things in front of the characters that are always going forward. There's never a chance for the characters to take a break. And so I wonder if maybe they want to throw those to the reader to say like, hey, just take a breather, sit down. Here's another story. Here's a backstory. We're picking back up next month. And when you come back in, you're jumping right back into the story. I could see that being the mindset of Soule and Alburquerque.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, there's so many aspects of the story to try to figure out where to begin. But I was kind of fascinated by, I don't know, the first 6 to 8 issues of this because after issue 12, I would have said Blades is kind of our protagonist, more so than any other one character. It's clearly an ensemble drama here, but Blades is the guy you enter the story through in issue 1.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you're kind of, now this might be revealing too much in my hand. I'm kind of rooting for him in issues 1 through 12. And simply by pulling back from him and watching his impact for 6 issues of like, he's starting World War III, he's an egomaniac, he's this, and this.
Yeah.
You're not in the room with him anymore, and you're just watching him, which I thought was a very clever thing to do. I really started to question, like, oh, is he actually a good guy? Is he actually the character I want to, win or succeed or whatever? And I just thought to myself, like, what if Breaking Bad had done that, or The Sopranos, or The Wire? What if they had just, totally switched perspectives for 6 episodes, and you just see like the havoc that your beloved protagonist is causing on the world, and you're like, oh, why am I rooting for that guy? But then they kind of bring you back in the room with Blades after this.
Well, I think shows that they try to do that because there is a fear that your people are connecting to the wrong things. It's like people who valorize Walter White, Tony Soprano. You're like, no, wait, no, not good people. Like
Right.
No, not role models, not good people. Great characters, not good people. But no, I definitely agree with that about Blades, as you mentioned, because he is the person who comes in, and because there is this overtone of real world presidencies, right? And regardless of who Blades is, I think what you said is spot on. Where maybe you're rooting for him to be the person you want him to be. The president
Right.
you want him to be, because it seems like he could be that. And you're right. You pull back here and you see like, oh, okay, well, whether this is implicit in his character or the nature of the job of the office, it's almost impossible to be that, And now I still think he makes some politically tactical errors,
Yes, and apparently all predicted by Carol. And it's like, all right, if Carol's so omniscient, why isn't he still in office? But
Okay. Well, first off, he had 2 terms. He can't go back in office.
we'll see about that. That comment's going to age poorly.
That probably so. But I think in this case, though, I'm actually on Carol's side in that this is exactly what would happen if someone did this. Whether they announced it immediately after Discovery or now 8-9 years later, this is how I would predict the world would react to the confirmed acknowledged existence of sentient extraterrestrial life. Like the world breaks down. I have no faith in the world that we come through this. Like we immediately turn on ourselves. This is exactly, even in this heightened state where under Carol, the U.S. developed all this crazy advanced weaponry, and that he apparently still has access to give to other nations in the world. Even without all of that, I think society completely breaks down. So,
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying that. Do I agree that, well, then we should keep it hush hush and not? I'm not saying that's the right course. I don't know. What I do know is that Blades being so adamant about, we got to tell the people, we got to let them know, just by letting them know what we're doing and giving them justification for my actions, they're going to be on board. Absolutely not. Like that is not going to happen. And it's bore out that did not happen. So yeah, I don't know if Blades is supposed to be the good guy, if we're supposed to see him as the guy that's just trying to do his best, or the guy that still has an agenda. You know, he's still a politician. He still wanted to be president. Whether or not Carroll thinks he pulled strings behind the scenes to elect a guy even from a different party that he thought he could control or manage in some way.
Can we just pause on that one real quick?
Yeah, yeah,
Like, extremely tough look for our guy McCain.
yeah,
Totally
yeah,
fair, Sarah Palin.
yeah, yeah.
That's page 433 by
But
my count, which is an
straight
approximation.
strays everywhere,
Right? Yeah,
getting
but
everyone taken out.
actually, like what it made me think of, which I'm sorry to bring this into a moment of lament, but I was like, man, do you remember how poorly liberals like myself and the Democrat Party in general treated the McCain and Romneys of the world? Like
Yeah,
we acted like they were just alt-right nuts.
yeah,
And I think eventually that party was like, well, if they're going to treat everybody we put forward like an alt-right nut, we might as well actually have an alt-right nut.
yeah,
And
yeah, 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 yeah.
and then, who was it that was mourning John McCain's death? It wasn't the sitting president at the time who
Yeah,
refused
yeah,
to go and called him a loser. It was all the Democrats who were like, that was the last good Republican.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Might
even
have buffed that one, guys. Yeah,
even
yeah,
2014, when this
yeah,
issue was written,
yeah.
it was like, look at this,
It was still seen
we
as
put forward here.
absolutely,
Um,
absolutely. So yeah, but again, so I mean, that's an obvious intentional dig there that they're taking, but removing that level of egregiousness from kind of the real world overlay, um,
Sure.
there is the sense of like, yeah, are we supposed to be rooting for Blades? Are we supposed to be wanting this guy to quote unquote make the right decision or make better decisions? Are we supposed to be on his side and wanting him to resolve? Do we want him to be Bill Pullman in Independence Day, right? Is he supposed to be the guy that is the rallying leader, that whatever it is, he makes the right choice for everybody? Or are we just supposed to be watching a politician just like work his way through it? You know?
Well, that's
Is
an
he supposed to be
interesting
someone with
comp
flaws? Yeah.
because Bill Pullman in Independence Day makes a lot of similar NFL or a lot of similar like Blades level mistakes.
Yes. Yes.
And like the naivete, the trust in the public. It's like, we're going to announce this.
Trust in his
Everyone's
advisors.
stay
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
There's no reason to panic. And it cuts to New York
Yeah.
City, and there's like luggage flying out of 10th floor windows, landing on the taxis, and
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which is like, first of all, aliens in town. What luggage are you taking
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
in New York City? Like every second you take to pack a shirt or a sock
Yeah.
is an hour of extra traffic getting out of the
Yeah.
city. But anyway, well, maybe sometime next 4th of July, we'll just do an Independence Day podcast. Be like, screw it. We've done comics for 4 or 5 years straight now. We're going to do one Independence Day. 'Cause clearly, we have a lot of thoughts on 90s movies. But
Again,
I mentioned that this story draws that all out of me.
yeah. Well, yeah. 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 I think you're
But
right to question.
I think it's better politics than Independence Day. Like Independence Day was so surface level about it.
Yeah. 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 But I think you're right to question, are we, I don't think you're supposed to be on Carol's side because he's clearly fairly, I don't
Well,
want to say evil, but yeah,
But no, I had the same reaction as you though,
Yeah.
where I was like, wait, am I actually supposed to like Carol? And this was when I hadn't seen anything from Blades. Blades is only appearing on TVs, and you're
Yeah.
hearing about it from Carol's vantage point. You're like, what an idiot Blades is. Maybe Carol's the good guy. And the only reason I was primed not to believe that is because of the clear comp to like George W. Bush
yeah,
from the first 12 issues. And then you have the clear Obama comp for Blades, which is fading rather quickly. And
Yes.
let me say, for all of the boxing thing is the biggest departure, except for it's like, okay, well, we may have basically a George W. Bush, basically a Barack Obama, basically a John McCain and basically a Palin. Although I think that John McCain looked a little more like Karl Rove, but that was probably not an intentional miss. That
Mhm.
was probably another stray
Maybe.
that was tactically aimed. There is no comp for Michelle Obama. There are no
No,
shades of Michelle Obama in this first lady. In
no,
fact,
no,
this
no.
first lady is a problem.
Yes.
I think everything he does out of vanity or ego is just fueled by his wife's insistence that he not question himself ever, never consider taking another path. Just go with your gut. And it's like, lady, you are doing so much damage.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
But I think I feel like she is nudging his worst impulses that he would be following anyway. It's like he would be doing this,
I think it would
but
take him a little longer to get there. But when
I
he
maybe so.
decks the Secret Service agent, knocks him out,
Yeah.
and is like, we can't fire a gun, and she just pulls the trigger. It's like, what? I
Well,
didn't
yeah.
hear you. And
Yeah. Well,
that's a step further than he would go. But
it
once you
is. Yeah.
cross that line, the line's been crossed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now, it's like they're covering for each other in a murder. I mean, a little bit of self-defense, but a murder, a homicide. How about that?
Yeah.
They're covering for each other in a homicide. What's the next thing they'll consider covering for each other? It's like, okay, well, that happened really fast. Now I'm covering for you. And now I know that I'll cover for you with a manslaughter or a homicide, something that I advise you not to do. You did it anyway, and I'm still on your side. And that type of boundary pushing can go sideways very, very fast. I mean, it already has.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we are, this is the whole idea is take it. It's like this is an examination of the presidency and power, obviously ratcheted up to the extreme with literal out of this world pressures.
But the
Yeah,
question though is it like to prove your point though,
yeah,
if Carol had the first lady assassinated, I think
yeah,
that would seal Blade's revolution in the resolution in the direction the first lady's already pushing him.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
he would just be like, well, she was right, and I'm going to go pursue all my instincts
yeah,
without
yeah.
restraint now,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which means those were already his instincts.
Yeah, but I think what what I see how the relationship is Blades is someone who knows he should consider the other path, but almost like he wants permission to go the slightly more selfish way, and
Right.
I think his wife is like, yeah, you can do that. It's like he just needs to hear someone else say it. He is trying. It's like he's trying to be the quote unquote good person. But I do think that scene with the Secret Service agent who's taking them into custody before he's killed, he calls out Blades, right? And he's like, you don't want peace, you want to win.
Right.
Which is a radically different thing. And then after, the attempted kidnapping and he's killed or whatnot, Blades comes back and is like, yeah, you know what? I do want to win. It's like you got called out, and the response was like, yeah, you know what? I'm okay with that. And whether it's because they've crossed that line now and there's no going back or whatever, but I think that was a correct read, is that it's less about being right. It's less about you don't want to end any of this. You want to win, and wanting to win is different than reaching a conclusion. Making sure you're on top, that everyone knows that you have done this. That there's a level of ego there that I don't think anyone who's assumed the office of presidency cannot have.
Right. What's the West Wing quote? I think it's 20 hours. And he's like,
Yeah.
I want to win. You
No,
want to
no,
beat
no,
him.
no. Yeah, yeah,
It's
exactly.
like you
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
beat him, and I want to win.
Yeah,
And that's a problem.
yeah, 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 yeah. The idea of well, and speaking in that case, wanting to win is wanting the party to win, want the administration to win. You just want to beat him, as in you want to show up, you're on top. And in this case, that's the same thing that's the comp for what Blades is doing here, is that he has this, in the middle of World War III, he doesn't want to end the war. He doesn't want world peace. He wants to win the war.
Right.
Those are different outcomes. So I think he's called on the mat on that. And yeah, after they kill the guy, which this goes back. I mean, like, you tried to kidnap the president. At that point, I think your life is forfeit. Like, I don't
Oh yeah.
there's no homicide or murder charge there. Any attempt on that, regardless of, and like that's a no go. But still, they've crossed that line now, and it's like Blades can drop whatever facade it is and be like, yeah, you know what, we are going to win. Screw this,
Right.
let's go. And of course, that turns out to backfire. But then these other factors keep coming in, right? Like, as they send the, what do they call the laser from space? Is it,
Wait, it's a leopard?
Leopard, it was Leopard. Yeah, I
Yeah.
couldn't find my notes there. Yeah, so they fire that and take out a base. And I like, at that point, he's like, okay, well, you know what? Germany, they nuked our base. We nuked your base. So we're even now, right? Because that's how this works.
Tit for tat, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
There's no escalation, which he was
exactly, yeah.
warned about very
I know.
early.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's like, you know what, though? You know what? But hey, you got us. We got you. We're even. Like, we're square. And it's like, no, that is not how it works. But because there ends up being this other thing,
I mean, is
being
this
the
like
asteroid.
I assume you fought a little bit with your brother growing up.
Yeah.
Which is like, it does not matter. It does not matter if you each punched each other 3 times. If you were the last one to receive a punch,
Yeah.
it's not over.
No, yeah, no.
Like,
It doesn't work that way. There is
Right.
no fairness. There's no evenness to that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because your like testosterone driven mind is not looking for like, well, I guess those were about 3 equal blows. We each got him in.
Yeah.
My arm is the most sore because I was the last one hit. But fair is fair.
Yeah.
It's like, no, 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 no. That's not how raising young boys works. That's not how
Well, but
brothers work.
Yeah, but even here, there's like, well, so you dropped a small nuclear warhead on this plant, and what did you destroy? You shot a laser from and like these things are there's no equivalency here, The idea is equivalent, but there's no actual equivalency. So to just be like, oh yeah, well, loss of life, loss of resources, yeah, we're all good here, right? Germany, we're fine, and it's like, no, like that's a level of naivety, of ignorance, or whatever you want to call it for Blades, that just, yeah, it's another one of those kind of mistakes of like, well, if we do this and we're public about it, everyone's going to be on our side. They're going to understand. And every time he does that, the answer back is a resounding nope.
Right. Okay. So there are two like bigger zoom out things I want to talk about. But well, yeah, there are two, I would say, broad discussion. Like, if I was going to a book club, these are the two things I would bring up. And the first is this. Is this book a critique of politics, politicians, or humanity writ large? Is this saying, this is what politics does to itself, or is this is what politicians do to the world, or is it this is what any human would do in any situation because humans are the problem?
If I had to rank those, I think I might say, ooh, I think
It's,
I might.
it's basically 3 ways of saying the same thing.
It
It's
is.
just
Yeah,
saying,
it's what's the
which
root
one-
cause?
chicken egg, right?
What's the
Yeah.
root cause there? Yeah, I think when you I think when you factor in the team in space and the decisions that they are making as well, I do think it's an overall critique of society and humanity, just looked at from two different viewpoints.
Yeah.
And in terms of on Earth, I don't think it's about politicians. I do think it's about politics, and that those playing together. They're saying that this is the system that we're in, and because of the system that we're in, these are the kinds of players that are in it. So
Right.
it's not. I don't
It's
think
saying
there's.
this is why politics won't work. This is why politicians are bad.
Yes,
Because you're taking the problem and adding that to politics.
I think
Therefore,
so.
your politicians are bad.
I don't think he's blaming politicians. I don't think he's blaming people for having opinions and thoughts. I think he's saying that this is the natural end result of of the system we've created of presenting the world in this way. But I think overall it is a look at humanity, because I think you can look at I think there is a juxtaposition between the crew of the Clark and everything that's happening in the world, in terms of here they are it was the nine of
Well,
them. Now it's the
if the
seven of
planet
them.
were capable of having the solidarity that the people on the ship do, which we should have. We are
Yeah.
all on the same ship. Our ship just happens to have 6.5 billion people on it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we are all in the same
We're
boat.
close to I'm not close to like 8 now, but yeah, but it
Yeah,
also,
eight. Yeah.
yeah, but
I'm
the idea
using
that
stats from
yeah,
the early 2000s.
I know,
It
yeah.
was a period accurate stat.
Oh, okay, all right, fair. Actually,
No,
yeah.
no. It was an accidental thing on my part.
Okay.
But if I have to retcon it, I'll say, no, I was in the 2000 mindset.
Right. Yeah, but yeah, the idea that they have decided we are going to save this child, we're going to go back. Well, first off, we already know this is a one-way trip. We signed up for a one-way trip. We're doing this for the greater good, right? For humanity. We're going out and doing this because it's going to be monumental on a global and historic scale. But now what they're doing now, their mission is personal.
Right.
It is now very much we are trying to save our crew, our people. And
And
yeah,
it seems like they. It seems like the baby is not the only reason they have decided they want to live or try to make it
well,
work.
yes, yeah, I
Which
think yeah,
which kind of suggested early on
it
that
was.
the
Yeah,
baby is going to change things, and
yeah,
it's like actually people want to live.
yeah,
That like they want to live.
yeah.
So they're going to try to figure something out.
Well,
Imperfectly flawed, whatever. They're going to try to
and I wonder it is too. There is something to the idea, and I could understand this mindset of everyone is real gung ho and they signed up for a one-way mission, and then someone dies before the mission happens.
right.
And so I wonder if there was something about Rowan dying and then Gomez dying and sacrificing the way he did, in terms of interfacing with the builders and at least allowing them to escape initially, even though they have to go back to get Astra. If there's something about that yeah, there's a bonding here of we're stuck doing this, but yeah, we want to see what comes out of this. And I think definitely after making contact with the builders and trying to have a level of understanding, and of course having no idea of Drum's fate, assuming he's dead, having no idea that he came back and had been on that asteroid the whole time. Yeah, I think now they have a sense of yeah, well, we want to try and because they have a better understanding now of what the builders are or aren't. It's no longer just scientific exploration. It's now well, they say the world's going to end, and they're here to save us, but not save the world. So we want to try to save the world now.
Right.
Like they have taken on a different mission, a new mission that they didn't know was an option beforehand because they didn't have all the information. So yeah, there is a sense of yeah, we can you can working together. There's something greater we want, and we can try to strive for something greater. And it's like a microcosm of what isn't happening on Earth, because Earth is just chaos.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this leads me to my second big picture question. The term irony is famously misused.
Yes.
People always point to Alanis Morissette's entire song is without any irony.
Yes.
And then the question is it ironic that her song
Is not about irony, of
is
course.
not about irony? But anyway, there are several different classifications of irony. And so I'm wondering which one you think is most apt here, because the basic premise here now, which you just said, aliens are here to protect humanity from an asteroid that spells doom for the planet, and humanity kills itself because of the fear over the thing that's here to save it.
Yeah.
And so dramatic irony is option one, which is when the audience knows something the characters don't, meaning we have the full picture view that no one else does. Although I think that's not quite true because your astronauts in space know the situation. They're like, I can't believe World War III is happening.
Yeah.
Then there's situational irony, which is when the outcome is the opposite of what was intended. That certainly is, humanity trying to defend itself from what it thinks is an existential threat, ends up becoming the architect of its own existential threat.
Yes.
Or there's the cosmic irony, the irony of fate, which is when there's a cruel twist of the universe, like forces beyond human control, making human choices tragic or futile. And that, an asteroid is frequently cosmic fate.
Hmm.
Cosmic fate tends to be, or at least I think of it as every episode of Seinfeld. Um, it's just like, you know, all this progress is made and then it's all just wiped clean like an etch a sketch at the end of each episode because of things beyond their control. So
Yeah.
all their striving and effort ends up meaning nothing at all. So anyway, is it an ironic story? Um, and if so, is there a particular type of irony that you think it might lean toward or draw from the most?
That's interesting. Given what you presented there, I feel like it is mostly, which was the second one, situational.
Yes, dramatic, situational, and cosmic. And those are only the three I'm presenting. There are
Yeah, yeah.
others. I'm not an irony expert.
In terms of what you presented, I feel like situational, but it depends on which characters you're following because not everyone has all the information. The
Well,
reader.
that's interesting because I do think that's why I came up with those three out of my
Yeah,
list of
yeah,
ironies because
yeah,
I'm like, well, the people on Earth clearly has dramatic irony.
yeah,
The people on the ship have situational irony.
yeah.
The whole thing has a sense of cosmic irony to it,
A little bit.
although it's really not situations beyond their control. They did not have to break out into World War III because of this.
Yeah.
That's the indictment of human nature.
Well, and also they also like, and as Drum says, like the world will be destroyed, and the builders are here to save humanity, but not save Earth. You know,
Right.
there's a bit of a Thanos quality to this of like, I have the power to do anything, so I'm going to kill half the humanity to save them, as opposed to just giving everybody enough resources for everybody to live.
Right.
You know,
When your
it's
name
'cause-
means death or you're in love
yeah,
with Lady
yeah,
Death,
yeah.
that's
Well,
kind of
but the idea that like I can do anything, and so I'm going to save people by getting rid of people, as opposed to saving people by giving everybody the things they need to live now currently better. That just means you want to kill people. Which is you have the same thing here with the builders, right? They're saying we want to save 666 people. You get to live, everyone else dies, but humanity gets to live, but Earth gets to die. And the question is, well, why can't you stop Earth from dying? If you care that much, why can't you do that? But again, so that's information that Drum is putting out there, and what the astronauts on the Clark know, right? But even on Earth, you have what Blades is doing, and you have what Carol's doing in his bunker, right? And so, and because he has backroom dealings with Project Monolith. And so the idea that depending on which characters you're viewing from, I think you get a different sense of what your situation is, of what kind of irony you're experiencing and being shown. So in that case, I do think it's pretty much all of them. Cosmic's a little different, but definitely dramatic and situational depends on your perspective and which character you're choosing to either which character you're being shown the story from or which one you choose to look at the story from as a reader.
yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Either way, I'm appreciating the irony, but I do think like not being able to parse it um cleanly is like in my mind more of a bug than a feature,
Mm.
which I think is why I kind of like resist to that space plot line. I'm like, I want a really tight story of the Earthbound
Mhm.
stuff. Again, not an option, not offered to us.
Yeah.
So we have to take the story as they intend it. And like, I do have to admit now that the space story is pretty good. It's
Yeah.
still just not the story I would have picked.
And I think maybe the thing about that, and I think the reason why I think something we talked about last week was that we didn't know what the space story was going to be in terms of like what were their goals, what are they trying to do. Now they very much have one. They have the crew of the Clark has a goal and a set. They have an objective in mind. Versus what you have on Earth, where you just have a bunch of competing of objectives, but a lot of stuff can happen because there's so many balls in the air. With the Clark, you just have the crew and the relationship to the builders, or at least when we ended last week, we didn't know what that relationship was going to be, right? But now we have a clearer view of that, and they have a clear objective of we got to get Astra back, and so that gives them a little more agency versus just like we're trying to figure things out. And so I think by giving them a little more direction, a specific direction, I think that locks in some of the character relationships and motivations and all of that. And I think that makes them more interesting. And I think tying them back now, because Drum is now back on Earth. So we have this now connection between Earth and space, even though it's a disconnect between
It's not real
Drum
time. Yeah.
and it's a disconnect between Drum and the crew. But there is a connection there now. Now the people on Earth have a direct connection to the builders as well. I think that makes that you can see how things maybe start to begin to maybe come together. You can't quite see it, but you know that it's all going to come to a head at some point. So I think those factors make the space story, I think, more interesting to me, at least as a reader, in this set of issues, in this volume, because there is more connectivity, there's more direction, and thus I think you care a little more about them because they are now caught up in the larger scheme. They're the ones that know kind of what the larger game is more so than people on Earth, at least prior to Drum coming back. They had interaction with the builders. They had a sense of what their deal was. They were trying to work out and parse what their meaning was, while people on Earth were just killing each other in World War III.
Yeah. Well, and I actually was kind of wondering if this is an intentional or unintentional or nothing at all. But I thought maybe this is a little bit of a riff on like the story of Christianity, where humanity turns on its savior and destroys the thing trying to save them. And it became very, very poignant to me when Blades returns, and they just immediately
Drum returns.
But he disarms.
Oh yeah,
them, and it's like all the guns we have, and Drums. It's just like, guys, I'm here to help you. I need to talk to the president, and they're like, everything we got, throw it at him. And it's just like, you literally sent me to do this. Now I'm back here telling you I've got it ready to, I'm done. I can help you. And they try to kill him. And now that story I don't think is unique to Christianity, but obviously, a central tenet.
Yeah, but you're right. The idea of the savior or potential savior being like, I have news for you that can help you, and the people who need to hear the news being like, nah, we're good. Right. We're waiting for a savior, but you're not the one here. You can go away here. But yeah, that idea of being doubted. But he also is coming in. There is a very archetypal presentation for him where he comes in. He's a little cryptic. Can't fully explain everything because he's seen enlightenment, right? And you just have to if you've seen what I've seen, you'd be doing the same thing. I can't fully explain it to you because it's so far beyond our consciousness or whatever, right?
Right.
So
which is also Neo going to Zion, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's an extra level of that character comes back and cannot be forthright. A character who in stories, when that character comes back to the rest of the world, they're never straightforward. It's always cryptic. It's always riddle-ish. It's just like, I'm going to be very ominous. I'm very straightforward. I'm going to lay out the facts to you, and you either get with the program or you don't, because you just don't get it. I understand what's coming and you don't, and they can't ever explain anything to the other characters. And so you get the scene of like when he's brought into I guess that's their situation room. Yeah, it is a situation room. And that's when he lays out like you got to pick 666 people to save humanity, you know, and
By the
no
way,
reason why other than just like, hey, the world's going to end. We don't know when, but make the decision quickly. I can't make the decision, so I'm going to put this on you, President Blades, a person who I believe is the right man to make this call. You know,
right.
you know.
Um,
But
yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
yes, everything. By the way, Sit Room had my favorite panel or page of the entire series so far.
Okay.
This is not going to be super helpful to anyone since the pages are not enumerated, but by my approximation, it's about page 693, or no, sorry, page 458, which is where when Blades finds out that they blew up Leopard, and everyone in the sit room is like, okay, well, what's next? Moving on, whatever. And his face is just so hollow and like gaunt, and he's just like
Yeah.
totally, totally devastated. Can't hear anything around him. I thought this is one of those things, in a movie, you would hear like a faint ringing in his ear or something like that,
Mm.
where it's like, people are talking about the asteroid entering the atmosphere, and this is a tragedy, worst thing we've ever suffered, and he is just staring like we are all so dead. There's nothing more to talk about.
Yeah.
I think it's very potent, and very well drawn.
Actually, speaking of that, you have you noticed that his hair is just getting whiter and whiter?
Yeah,
And
I was
and
tracking the
then
time of that because I was
yeah.
like, his hair is growing much whiter than the
And then
baby is growing old,
yeah.
especially since you're on day like 893 of his administration. The baby should
Yeah.
be 2. I mean, I guess we
Yeah.
don't strictly know when the baby was born in relation to the beginning of the Blades administration.
Mhm.
We could probably go back and check the timestamps,
Yeah.
but
Well, but I think also like, say by the time of end of issue 24 here, when they kind of when I guess when Blade steps down from power through the 25th and all that, like his hair is fully white now. Which I
right.
think that is a commentary on presidents. Like when you see them on day one versus the last day of office, how much they've aged, and then when you see them 2 years after not being in office, and they look like 25 years younger because the amount of stress and anguish is off their body now. But
Well,
yeah,
the famous like tracking the last 18 months
yeah.
of portraits for Abraham Lincoln
Mhm.
was like, you know, I am not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm like, was he dying anyway? And they decided to have an assassination, um, because my gosh, I mean, it went downhill so quickly,
Yeah.
and Obama held up pretty well in his first term, but my gosh,
Yeah,
by his
but you
second term, he had aged 20 years.
you see the amount of gray in the hair. I think when you look at President Clinton the same way, and then they leave office and like they make an appear. They leave office, you don't see him for a while, and like 2 years later they come back. That like they reappear on an interview somewhere, and you're like, wow, President looks good. Yeah, because he doesn't
Right.
he no longer has the literal weight of the world on his shoulders, and so I think that's a nice subtle thing they've been doing with, when maybe not so subtle because it's
Well,
pretty
and look how
obvious.
terrible Carol has looked this whole time. You're
Yes,
just like,
yeah,
how does somebody that look like that ever become president? And then you look at the flashbacks, which we finally get to his
yes, yeah,
administration,
yeah.
and he looks like a normal dude.
Yeah, yeah. I
So,
think I think that's intentional as well in the art. The way like
so
the
shout
the
outs all
pockmarks on his
around here
face.
to
Yeah,
Alberto Albuquerque.
yeah.
Um, really enjoying the art in the series, by the way. Like
I
the great paneling choices, great splash choices.
yeah. I like what they do in how there are some subtle different things they do when they're in space versus on Earth. Like the paneling gets a little more open in space, a little wider. Sometimes it's borderless. I think the idea that of weightlessness or whatever, the idea of being out in space versus confined on Earth. I like they play with some things like that. They don't get too crazy with it, but it's enough to kind of be like subtle hints as you're reading. Not that you wouldn't know that you're in a different environment, but I like that they seem to have put enough intentional thought in visually representing and presenting those stories slightly differently, slightly off. I think
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
yeah. Very well done. Sorry, I'm just blazing through my notes. Anything you want to talk about, feel free to just
No. I have.
grab
I
the
mean,
wheel.
I think. I mean, I think the big thing is like the two main revelations we got out of this story wise are the idea of the builders, that they're not necessarily here. They have the capability to destroy us as humanity and Earth. They're not here for that.
No, in
Again, they
fact,
want to.
it's like
Yeah,
like you should have been able to intuit like, hey, they blew up a moon.
yeah,
Oh, there's an asteroid coming our way.
yeah,
Maybe they were practicing their asteroid
yeah,
targeting skills.
yeah, yeah.
But
But yeah,
nope,
no. Again, the idea that they
we
want to
assume the
save
worst.
they want to
Yeah,
save humanity, but not save Earth. And then obviously the other big reveal was Drum coming back and the idea of picking a number of survivors. And I think it was an interesting conversation, that little bit we saw at the end, towards the end there, of Blades and his wife,
right.
as they're talking about like who would you want to have. And it seems they were talking like, well, it's going to be a whole bunch of children and then like the smartest teachers in the world, you know.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
well,
it's like,
I mean, that's always an interesting question, though, and
yeah,
that's the deep impact Armageddon question, back in that
yeah,
day.
yeah.
Um,
Are you, what's the reason for this? Are you there to preserve the knowledge of humanity? So are you trying to find the people who are the most knowledgeable and can represent that? Or is the point to restart civilization?
right,
You know,
right.
like
Yeah, because
regardless
you
of
could
holding on to our
accidentally
knowledge. Yeah.
create an idiocracy situation.
Yes, you could.
Um,
Yes.
like actually wouldn't even really be that difficult where you're like, oh, we got all the smartest people who are so busy trying to preserve all human knowledge that they forget to reproduce.
Yes. Yeah. It's exactly what you could do. So yeah, it is a, I don't know if it's interesting, but I like that they broached that conversation and talked it through, you know? So
Yeah. My- The
yeah.
lights just went out in my room. I don't know why. I'm guessing my daughter has a now strong command of our smart hubs
Oh,
and
excellent.
shouts out, "Hey Google," with instructions all the time now
I'm
on
sure
how.
that won't go awry. Yeah.
And there you can hear it. Just in me trying to demonstrate it, our
Yeah.
home is now talking to me.
Yeah.
So you'll love to see it. So anyway, I didn't actually lose power or anything. My last big note here, and there's a couple points to it, but Carol can't be this hard to kill.
It's yeah, this is tough. Yeah.
His actions are, and this is the other thing. His actions going to Germany, giving them all this technology he developed because he feels like it's his, not the United States,
Yeah.
are blatantly treason, like treacherous,
Oh, yeah.
treasonous
Oh, yeah.
behavior, especially for a man who can still seems to juggle this balance of decor for the
Yeah.
office of the presidency and the secrecy
Mhm.
of the state. So it's like he considers himself patriotic, yet is willing to be treasonous against the country,
Yeah.
um,
And still has
because
people loyal to him,
still has people loyal to him. Yeah,
like life debt level loyalty to him.
yeah, oh yeah. And I mean, the problem is he has, yes, he has a loyal inner circle, which, if you've been through that kind of stuff together, I kind of get it.
I can see that. Yeah.
But he also forces a lot of loyalty by wielding this information. So he can go to the Chancellor of
Oh,
Germany
yeah. Yeah.
and say, like, here's all the stuff I've got on this flash drive, which is wild. I don't know what the biggest flash drive was in 2014, but it wasn't that big.
All of our state secrets on 32 gigs, and that's
Right?
it.
Yeah. And now, yeah. Now that's the one that you get like the little mailer for like, you bring this card into Micro Center and you can have a free 64 gig
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
USB
Yeah.
drive. It's enough to hold all of the state secrets twice. Um,
Got to have a backup copy.
um, so anyway,
But I was to say, like, obviously for the international kind of coalition he built there, I was talking about like internally, domestically, the amount of loyalty he has, that he can still, that he has connections everywhere. People are still at this point, though, because at this point, anyone still working with him is an act of treason. You know,
Right.
Even working under the director of Project Monolith, who we see in flashback. He wasn't the original director, but he became the one. He became the director because he was on the same side as Carol in terms of how he viewed the aliens and what their potential motives might be. So he ascended to that position and has held on to it this whole time and is still in contact with Carol and in a way undermining Blades and doing all of this stuff. When and so the fact that he could still engender that level of commitment, it just seems real hard that he could operate with any, like, the fact that Blades knows that it's Carol doing all this and can't do anything about it or seems to be unable to. That's the part that seems a little stretchy with this true, kind of like that stretches credibility. Like, it almost seems more credible to me if Blades had no idea, if his administration had no idea who was behind all of this stuff, than
Right.
them actively knowing that it's the former president and being like, well, he's just out there doing this, as
Right.
opposed to trying to shut that down, knowing that shutting that down would, or at least shutting it down early, could have prevented or ended World War III. If you just hunted him down and cut him off at the source, you don't get to World War III. So how can you not find him?
Right. It's like, before nuking anyone,
Yeah.
maybe find the one man who you have already found. I mean, not
Yes.
killing him the first time. It was like when you had him in your grips and you knew he was a snake.
Or not locking him up.
Right.
Just
Well, I mean, but even the locking him up, it's like he's in hiding anyway. He's withdrawn from public life. You could kill him and it would take years for anyone to even know he was gone.
yeah. Yeah.
Especially once you drop the news you were planning to drop anyway.
Mhm.
But I think it's a little bit of like a pissing match where like both of them are so ego driven, so obsessed with beating the other one that it's like a Bond villain. Like, he keeps him alive because he wants him to experience failure.
And, we didn't discuss that too much last week, but I think, after they meet, after they capture Carol and they smuggle him into whatever suite they were talking in, and Blades leaves the letter for Carol, right? That's labeled 43.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. It's like, that's when you kill him.
Yeah. But that letter is a taunt. That's him being like, you screwed up. You left me with this, and I'm going to do it better than you. And by the way, you signed your name to your letter, because you're an idiot. I'm smarter than you. I think you're absolutely right. It is ego there on Blades as well, showing that he's not all that much better than Carol, really. That that he is still driven by, I want you to see that that you left me with this mess. You did this. You got me here. Watch how I get us out of it.
But
watch what I do with, and of course he fumbled that bag huge, but in the moment it is driven by ego to be like, I'm going to show that I'm better than you. Because Blades even says in this arc, says something to the effect of like, the only person in this world who I actually want to die is President Carroll.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
there is that level of animosity. Like, the one person he actually hates is also a person he has to, on some level, respect, because he's only one of the few people who have experienced the same job, But he absolutely hates this man.
Which is so funny because so often, like, former presidents will become chummy with each other in a way
Yes.
that makes the public uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I just think, every time Barack Obama or, Joe Biden would have, President George W. Bush
Mhm.
come around for a public appearance or something like that, or, be getting along or joking together. I remember, like, Mark Ruffalo would always like retweet it and be like, this man's a war criminal. He should not be there, yada, yada, yada. And it's like, I get that you're an actor, like, you're an activist, and not even wrong, but there, in our current, aside from one man, there is this respect for anyone else who's ever held the job because no one else knows what it's like.
And that is something that, yeah, up until recently, I always respected about the office of the presidency is that, like, there's nowhere written that you have to like anybody else who
Right.
holds that job, even from your own party,
Could
and especially like from
temperament
other
be
parties.
further apart between Jimmy Carter and Richard Nixon?
Yeah,
Yet,
yeah, yeah.
yet they
Yeah,
had
exactly.
state dinners together.
Yeah, but there is a respect for the office of someone having to sit behind that desk and make those calls, even if you know at your core you would have done the exact opposite way. And even if you did in your presidency do it the exact opposite way, there is something that you know that they know that nobody else knows. And I respect that part of the office there. And I think we've seen Blades wrestle with some of that, and I like we've seen him wrestle with that. And then, like, his choice then is to basically, like, screw you, Carol, I'm taking you down. But yeah, he had a chance to potentially end this, or yeah, I guess if if he arrests Carol right then and there, or kills him, disappears him in some way.
Just let the first lady handle it.
Yeah,
Just be like,
seriously, yeah.
hey, Carol's a problem. We got him downstairs. What
Yeah.
should we do about it? She's like,
Yeah,
why
yeah.
don't you go box for 15
I was
minutes?
saying,
I'll take care of it.
I've got a meeting. I'll see you for dinner.
Yeah.
And then walk away, and that's it.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Make sure you return him home.
Yeah, yeah.
Not an ambiguous statement at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we're just about at time. Although I gotta say, nothing summarizes this book. I'd like. By the way, Alex is always the one that is writing the descriptions for the episodes, pulling quotes, and writing really good summaries. But this is the only time I'm submitting my favorite quote for submission, and it's when Carol says, "The world is ending for real this time, but don't worry, I've got a way to spin it." It's just like the most craven sentence, and with like a giddy, boyish smile on his face. What in the hell is wrong with you?
Yeah. Well, he's already assembled a bunker full of followers, I guess. He already has his group of 600, or metaphorical 666 survivors, right? They're going to wait it out in this shelter. And then, Drum comes back and is like, no, we need an actual group of survivors. And I like the idea. There was that little dig there that Blades was like, and President Carroll has, volunteered or whatever to lead this task or whatever, and like puts him on blast in public, saying that he's going to be a part of this and he's cooperating and all that. But yeah, then that leads to him being like, well, I gotta spin this in my favor somehow, because those guys are still trying to win. They're still trying to win a game that might be unwinnable.
Right.
With whatever's happening with the builders here. And I guess I would say I'd want to
They've given up the game on winning humanity. Now they're just trying to win a political,
like, what's left. Yeah.
match. Right.
Well, it's almost like, yeah, if the world is going to end, if we've understand that the builders are coming and this is what they say is going to happen, and I guess at this point you have no reason to doubt them, what's left to win is like the PR battle between now and the end. So
it's really bleak.
Yeah, it is pretty bleak. But I guess I want to end on that. This idea of, okay, so we have the builders here, and we have their interaction of with the crew of the Clark, and they're Dr. Hayden is trying to get her daughter back, trying to get Astra back, but we know there's this overall looming threat, and this idea of what Drum brought back to Earth of we need 666 people here. I would wonder is where you think the conflict is going to come from. Is it going to remain? Will the larger will the larger, not extraterrestrial threat, because we're assuming the extraterrestrials are the builders and they're quote unquote good guys. The external threat, we'll call that, from space. Will that continue to put pressure on, or will our two combatants on Earth continue their pissing match and be more focused on that than whatever Drum is coming, being like, no, we got to do this thing because the world is ending. Where do you think the focus is going to be, and how do you see those things kind of colliding if they do at all?
So if I were writing it,
Mhm.
which I would not be a very good writer for this series because it surprised me a few times and has made me appreciate things that earlier in the story I was happy to jettison. So
Mhm.
all of those caveats of I would be terrible at this. But if I were writing it, I think the most compelling thing would be, maybe an issue where you have Blades wrestling with like, is it too self-serving to put myself on basically the Noah's Ark of 666
Yeah.
people?
Yeah.
Have him decide like, well, yes, me and my wife should go.
Yeah.
And then the next issue, you have someone bring him an absolutely ironclad reason of why he needs Carol on that ship as well. And, like, just like you can't put yourself there unless you also put Carol there. And if
Yeah.
you put yourself there without putting Carol there, here's the
You've
problems we're
doomed
going to face
everything.
in
Yeah.
space, and we're totally screwed. So, like, I think that would be like these two men continuing to butt heads. Because, like, the real reason, like, I'm going to answer my own question here. It's like, why is it so difficult to kill Carol? The answer is narratival.
No, of
Like,
course. Yeah.
if you killed him, the story would suck.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're going to be able to shake him that easily. And I'm assuming all of this is true. Like, the asteroid will hit. It will only be the people left on the ship. I'm assuming a catastrophic thing rather than some Deus Ex Machina that saves the Earth. Right. So I'm assuming the story continues
sorry,
along the same lines.
but at the very least, whether or not, even if there is a Deus Ex Machina, there is an actual need for a Deus Ex Machina, right? That whether or
Right.
not whether or not it actually happens, that there is something that is coming to destroy the Earth, and the need for the Noah's Ark is real. That's not some fabrication. Now, whether or not it actually happens, it is. I mean, obviously, the story can go in any direction, but you're working on the assumption that I'm working on the assumption that the builders aren't making this up. That they have sent Drum with a mission because they believe this thing is actually going to happen, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, all right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that. That would be the struggle, or I hope we see the struggle of like the idea of like, well, yeah, how do we decide who's worthy in that way, right? Who
Right.
deserves to go? And you're right, that is very much the Deep Impact story.
It's Deep Impact. It's Seven
Yeah.
Eves by Neil Stevenson.
Mhm.
Like all kinds of. It's. I mean, it's Noah's Ark, right? It's
Oh,
like,
of course, yeah.
yeah. I mean, somebody made a bad Noah movie like 10 years ago. I can't remember. It wasn't Ridley Scott. It just seems like something he would make.
Oh no. Well, but it starred Russell Crowe, I think.
I couldn't remember if it was Russell Crowe or Christian Bale, and then I remember
think
there was also the Noah movie or the Moses movie. So it was having a weird moment of doing like
I
things
think
no one needs.
the
Bible
Noah
movies
movie.
that
I
are
think
coming
I think
out.
that was Russell Crowe. Emma Watson, I think, was in that.
Emma Watson, Anthony
Yeah.
Hopkins. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
But yeah,
strange.
but yeah, there is on Earth. I think that is what would be most interesting. I think when we look at the crew of the Clark, again, to go back to these movies, I think is it Deep Impact where the crew sacrifices themselves entirely to save Earth, or is it Armageddon where Bruce Willis sacrificed himself, but the crew comes back and saves the Earth? They get to experience the world they saved versus being humanity's last hope there at the end. I think those are the two options you have on the table, at least in my mind, in terms of where that space story could potentially go. But I think we're set up for. I'm excited to see the worlds coming together, the stories coming together, right?
Yes.
I'm
Like,
excited to see how they blend. And again, this little tease of it with Drum coming back and being like this prophet or the mouthpiece of the builders, and knowing that the crew of the Clark have some of this knowledge as well, and what they're going to do in trying to get back, and is that possible, and how these things collide, because they have been so separate for so long. Our storylines have been running on different tracks, and
Right.
knowing that it's coming to the end, that they inevitably have to come together, and already seeing what those signs are, I think is very cool, and I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well. So for next week, it's 25 to 35,
Yep.
25 to the end.
Yeah, to
Uh,
35. Yep, all the way
yep,
to the end. Yep.
25 to 35. Thank you for reading with us. And it sounds like you've read a little further ahead. I only accidentally read one issue ahead.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's all still a surprise to me. I'm still accepting the premise of like
Mhm.
Earth is dying. It does seem like Charles Soule has the guts to do a high stakes ending like that, something that dramatic, something that earth shattering, rather than just saying like, you know, and then they got out of it and the earth was fine, but we learned something terrible about ourselves, which I think would could also be its own interesting ending in its own way.
Also, very much a soul thing. So,
That's true too. Um,
learning a sad, dark truth about humanity.
yeah, 8 billion genies.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
awesome.
S- Still a hopeful book, but also hard look in the mirror for humanity.
Right. Yeah. There's
Yep.
one human
It's
who
both.
like cracks
Yeah.
the code
Yeah,
at the very end of the book.
It's both though. It's both those things. It shows you both sides there. I think that's one of the skills of Soul's writing.
Yeah. Anyway, find us on Blue Sky where we tweet or we post
Whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we post almost we almost as often as we release a podcast episode. Same goes for Instagram and occasionally Facebook. But you can find everything on storiedarcs.com, and we will see you next week for the conclusion of letter 44.
Peace.